Welcome to Grace Pilled, where we explore the infinitude of God by talking about God, within God, aka interviews with people spanning the full spectrum of the spiritual path. My name is Hanna, and I will be your guide. I've been studying and practicing in a classical Shakta tantric tradition since 2015, and I just love exploring all of the ways that God wakes up within her own dream. For the last few years, I've been working professionally as a guide, doing one-on-one work and also giving talks and courses. If you ever want to chat with me, you can book a call with me on my website or join my Patreon, which is my massive library of talks that I've given over the years. If you want to support the podcast, I have a $5 tier on Patreon that you can use as a tip jar for the show, and I would love your support. And while I'm here, this episode today with Rami, coming back onto the podcast, we're talking a lot about what it's like to run a spiritual business. And just here in the beginning, I'd like to share that I've actually been doing business mentorship with people behind the scenes for the last year. And I don't really talk about it on social media or even in my email newsletter because I find it to be kind of like a taboo topic. I feel a little bit embarrassed about it, but I've been gainfully self-employed for 10 years and I kind of know a thing or two. And so people have sought me out and recognized me for my abilities and have asked me for guidance behind the scenes, but I've never been kind of so forthcoming about it. And so I'm actually looking to do more business mentorship with people one-on-one. If you're interested in having me put a second set of eyes on your service-based business specifically, so an online service-based business similar to what I'm doing, I would be so happy to help you. We can talk about marketing. We can talk about if your business is actually working for you. What are you not seeing that maybe I can point out for you to help you course correct and make this whole process of making your business work for you feel creative and fun again, which is something that me and Rami are going to talk a lot about. And so I just want to plug that. And if you want to book a call with me to talk about business mentorship potentially, just book a drop-in session with me on my website and we can go from there. The drop-in rate is not the same as my returning client rate, FYI. So that's that. Let's talk about Rami. Okay, so in this episode, sat down again with the insightful and funny Rami Abu-Sitta. He was maybe the third or fourth episode in this season, and the episode is called Pain is Trying to Wake You Up if you want to get more Rami. And Rami came back and we had a conversation that dives deep into the often unspoken terrain of running a spiritual business and all of the taboos that come along with it. And in this episode, we cover stuff like, what it means to show up authentically online, like what that actually means, holding space for other people and clients while still honoring our own humanity and our own imperfection, navigating the blurry edges between being of service to people and the professional consequences of being perceived by people. We talk about marketing as a form of spiritual integration work, the myth of the perfect spiritual guide and how that messes all of us up, and the inner tensions of sharing your truth in a world that often rewards performance or black and white myopic thinking. Okay. And I am the queen of nuance and I refuse to be anything but that. But this conversation is funny, it's honest, a little bit spicy. That's just the way that we like it. We serve funny and spicy food here at our restaurant. And you'll hear me use that analogy again. I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, Rami.
Hi, Hanna.
Welcome back to Grace Pilled.
Wow, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, it's great to have someone who's already been here back again.
Am I the first double?
Other than my friend Monica, who I've done a couple of episodes with that have nothing to do with the normal theme, you are the first return.
Okay, cool. I don't need to be special, but
just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying. Well, today we're going to kind of talk about what it's like to run a spiritual business, because the first half of our interview, when I was asking you about your spiritual biography, we like randomly went on that side quest talking about these things. And
yeah, that was at the front of my mind.
Uh-huh. And so we're going to return to that because I remember feeling really compelled by that conversation, and we're just going to kind of see where that goes today.
Can't wait.
Yeah, cool. Well, before we begin, just to kind of open up the conversation, like, do you have a recent win in your life, like a little thing that you're feeling good about, something you're proud of?
You know what? I'm proud of asking for help. I would say I've been a lone wolf for a long time in my spiritual business, probably just in my life, but it's definitely shown up in my business. And so I have a program that's starting in a week, and I enlisted the help of a co-teacher, co-facilitator, a graduate of my first apprenticeship. So not doing everything on my own it feels radically different, and like it's opening up a lot of doors for me internally, externally. It just feels, I feel more held. Like I've been holding other people for so long that it started to become unsustainable for me to do it on my own anymore. So that's my win.
Oh, that's
Learning
really
how to ask for
cool.
help.
Yeah, I love that. I can actually really relate with that because I taught my conflict course with a co-teacher, and we are such a good fit for each other, and we delegated tasks in a way that felt really good for both of us. And so there was like all of this heavy energy that I don't usually like doing, like PowerPoint. She loves doing that. And so I'm like, you go off and do that, but I would rather die than make a PowerPoint presentation. And so it was a huge win for me as well to like realize like, oh, it doesn't need to be this burdensome thing where everything's on my shoulders, actually. And there's a lot of beauty in having multiple perspectives as far as like facilitators for something too. So it was just like a win-win-win all around.
Definitely. Yeah, there's lots of content, entrepreneurial content out there that says, you know, for the first 10 years of my business, I was completely out of balance and I did everything myself. And that's how you build a business, is you are, you know, you're a complete mess. And then later in life, you can develop your meditation practice. And
after burnout.
But when I started, my
help.
family hated me and I lost all my friends and
I got divorced.
I fell into addiction. Yeah, I got divorced. Oh, that's what we're preaching now? That's the way to do it?
Yeah. I feel like, at least in the American narrative, that's probably the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we're kind of maybe hoping to expand beyond that.
Totally.
There's other possibilities.
I hear bits of that. Yes, you do have to stretch yourself. I'm sure you've had to do things in your business. I have things that I don't feel natural to me.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, one of my wins is recently I've only been drinking 1 coffee per day, which makes me feel like nature is healing in my body. So
beautiful. I'm on your level today too.
So that's my win. Well, one of the things that we were talking about before we hit record was this idea that we've both got ourselves into a situation, to put it neutrally, where we make money guiding people spiritually, teaching on spiritual subjects. And so essentially, to say it in words that make sense to people, we run a spiritual business. And we've just gotten here. And one of the things that we were saying before we hit record was that this is something that we've done. And there have been these like very unexpected points of growth that we've experienced that like I said, were unexpected. Like I wasn't expecting to look at like the deepest, darkest depths of my sense of self-worth when I said yes to starting an online spiritual business. That's not what I thought was going to happen. And then it happened. And then sometimes I feel, you know, I actually feel profoundly transformed by that, but I don't want to talk about it because it feels icky, right? So in so many words, that's kind of like a thing that we wanted to explore today, is that unexpected growth. Yeah. What do you think is like a big, when I talk about that unexpected growth, is there something in particular that comes up for you?
I mean, everything surrounding self-worth comes up. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like I didn't know I was walking into like a room full of funhouse mirrors when I launched my business. Whoa. That I was going to see distorted versions of myself and the things that I carry shame, pardon me, the things that I carry shame around, which marketing, sales, uh, I may create this work of art in the privacy of my little temple. But then the next step is you have to share that with the world, and you have to stand behind it. So if you create a course or even, sessions, or you have a retreat coming up, or all the things that come along with running a spiritual business, that's beautiful. And even if you write a book, great. And if you write that book in isolation and you don't tell people about it over and over and over again, people aren't going to find it. And so it's like, for me, I have these acts of creation, and then I owe it to that thing that I've created to be of service to it, to share it with the world. And I've faced a lot of my own doubt in the process, not of the creation of the very thing usually, but very much so in the sharing of that with the world. And I mean, it definitely has shown up in the creation of it as well.
But like there's maybe a little bit more of a fiery aspect that comes up when it comes to the moment where you might share it. Because of what? Because it's going to be perceived by people.
Yeah, and it's almost like something that I didn't have access to in myself until I pulled it out of my heart and showed it to the world. Like I didn't even know, like you talk about, I didn't know this journey of running a spiritual business was going to force me to work through all this shit. And in the same way, like the moment of sharing it brings up stuff that was hidden in the background. So shame, no one's going to care, which can also be liberating if you
Totally.
do a little thought
It's like a razor thin line.
Yeah. No one's going to care. Might as well share this. Well, no one's going to care. Why do you care so much? Why are you so afraid to share it? If no one's going to care, then just share it. And then I would also say, like, I came into my spiritual journey through crisis and chronic illness, and I found some, practitioners that I felt kind of manipulated into signing up for some of their services. There's really just one in particular that stuck with me, where I kind of kept going and kept paying the money and kept getting the treatments, even though it wasn't doing anything. And I almost think part of that was just me like trying to boost their ego or something, or afraid of letting them down in some sense, or not really checking in with myself. And then them like kind of coercing me into writing a testimonial for them, like while they kind of hovered over me in their waiting room. So, which sounds crazy now, but so when I am, selling something that I've poured my heart and soul into, there's this little gremlin that shows up on my shoulder, like, are you sure you're going to be perceived the way that, you perceive that other person? And just this ick that a lot of spiritual people have kind of like fragmented these two sections of life. Like there's our worldly endeavors, there's capitalism, there's surviving in a materialistic society where we have to pay rent, and then there's our spiritual world where it's pure, we're connected to source, we're connected to the deepest parts of ourselves. But over time, running a spiritual business has helped me to see that those two things are deeply intertwined. One is the practice, and then one is the implementation in another way. One is like the preparation, and the other is the integration. So like sharing this work with the world or running a spiritual business, it feels like an opportunity for me to integrate these aspects of myself, for them to be really in my body, in my voice, in my presence. And there's this feeling that it also requires a lot of vulnerability. Like we can shield ourselves I could hide behind a painting that I make and share it on the internet. And if someone doesn't like it, it's not going to hurt my feelings as much as if someone thinks I sound like Kermit the Frog in the guided meditation that I just like spent 5 hours making and giving them for free, or people calling me Tina Belcher on my, promo for my shamanic healing course.
Is this something that's actually happened, or are these your fears?
No, they've happened.
Wow.
I've had to open myself up to being burned, but it's humbling too.
Yeah, there's like certain entry fees.
Yeah, it's not like you're, a second grader and you have this really compassionate teacher that's holding space as you share your book report, and they're going to talk to the kids who pick on you. It's like, if you want to run a spiritual business and for it to be connected to your social media, and that's how you like grow your, connections, you're open to the collective unconscious. You're open to all the shadow and all the light. And people aren't just going to support you. People are going to try to tear you down. And the moments where they have torn me down or attempted to, I always take it as an opportunity for introspection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't just say this is their projections and shut off completely. A lot of the time, yes, it is projection. And especially when I'm showing up vulnerably, a lot of people carry shame around showing up vulnerably. They see it as weakness, but it's because they're afraid to do it themselves, of course. Mm-hmm. But I've also seen times where I've gotten, negative comments on the internet, and it's forced me into deeper self-inquiry.
Right. And so one of the entry fees, so to speak, is you're not in second grade anymore, and there isn't like a benevolent teacher who's going to defend you against the kids that are being mean on purpose. Yeah. And then in that, it's like you have to kind of recognize the territory that you're in. And the territory that you're in is the entire collective who is online in a social media space, and all of their individual life experience, all of their individual biases. And you're going to get certain pieces of feedback that might not feel good, that might feel like they're in bad faith, but it's still on you to see, what do I want to do with these little pieces of information? Because it's going to happen no matter what. Is kind of what I'm hearing you say. It's like, I'm still going to use these as moments of introspection, because maybe the person who manipulated you wasn't the sort of person that would get feedback and then think about it. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just making a guess.
Usually not. But sometimes. And I would also say, like, if you are doing it well, people should kind of be pissed off occasionally,
Oh my God, totally.
Like, you can be so vanilla, middle of the road, speak on such a surface level about spiritual things,
mm-hmm.
that you're never really saying anything. So you're not pissing anybody off, but you're also not really helping people that much because you're playing it safe. And if you're being true to yourself, like, you're not showing up with all your parts.
Mm-hmm.
You've chosen one very like shiny aspect of yourself, and that's what you're conveying to the world, and that's what you're running your spiritual business from. So for me, it's been an opportunity to bring more and more of my different aspects along for the journey, realizing like, hey, you want your business to do well? Well, guess what? You need to integrate this aspect of yourself. You need to bring a little bit more humor into it, because you're actually really funny with your friends. Like, who are you?
And that's like a part of you.
That's a part of you. And people see the missing elements. Like, I don't know.
Oh my God, that's such a good point. It's like there's an elephant in the room. Even when you're just shiny, people still see the elephant in the room 100% of the time, in my opinion.
Yes. And they don't have to know you in your personal life at all to know that you're like hiding something.
Mm-hmm. I also think with this idea of like showing up just with the shiny aspect or like with the version of yourself that you think is going to be palatable, if you're doing that as part of marketing for your business, which is actually supposed to be like generating an outcome, otherwise it's just like a hobby. If you're only presenting yourself with the shiny version of yourself, when you actually do get clients, you're going to get clients that are expecting the shiny version of you, and then they actually meet the real version of you, and that can create a lot of tension. So it's actually better to be as authentic as possible outwardly on social media, because then there's not this huge like friction when somebody actually meets you and they're like, wait a minute, this is not who I thought you were. And then they're just meeting you, though. Do you see what I mean? It's not like they're meeting like a horrible version of you. They're just meeting you. Do you see what I mean?
This is so valuable. I'm so glad you said that. You articulated it perfectly. And I can look back at the beginning of like running a healing practice and seeing clients one-on-one in person, which was all I was doing at the time. And and then like if I didn't have my humor in my marketing and you thought you were just going to receive a, session of energy work, and then like you maybe don't like my vibe that much, like when you do show up authentically, it's this self-filtration mechanism, and it's way better to filter right off the bat. Let's be that Brita filter, baby, like right off the bat. Like either you're with me, you're my ride or die, or you are annoyed as shit by me and you don't want to take this ride.
Totally. Or you like the food I'm serving at my restaurant. I like to think of it like that. You either like my food or you don't.
Yeah.
It's not personal.
I don't know. I have a lot of like personal trainer metaphors in my head surrounding self-work, because either you're going to jog alongside me and I'm going to, bark at you through a little megaphone and you're going to be down, or yeah, I like the restaurant idea. Like we talked about hot dogs before we hit record for some reason, because you misheard me. That's what it was. You want to be clear about the food that you're serving up. You don't want to advertise as a pizza joint and then only have hot dogs available when people walk in.
Oh, yeah, totally. I feel like for me, like I'm really heavy on personal responsibility. And it's not everybody's favorite food to eat, and that's fine. I don't care if anybody wants to eat personal responsibility. But like if my marketing doesn't include anything around like taking ownership for your role in your life, and then somebody starts working with me and I'm like, hey, like, not in like a weird aggressive way, but like if the conversation starts going in that direction, like if somebody it doesn't like that food, we're not a good fit.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? If that's like a main part of my cuisine.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm allergic to bananas. And I'm like, I should have told you that before you paid me. That I only serve bananas at my banana restaurant.
Totally. I thought I was hiring you to fix me.
That's another one.
Which is that's another one. That's the danger of not being clear that you're trying to set people up to be self-referencing, to take personal responsibility for their lives, to implement these things in their own time, that you're only going to meet with them for so long and then they're going to have to do the work themselves. If you're not clear on that, then people will be looking to you to be a savior, to rescue them, and it may come with the spiritual label. Like, I thought you were going to fix me. Especially, I will say some of this that's coming up, especially for people pleasers or people who have been chameleons at some point in their life. Maybe growing up, you learned really well how to shapeshift into all sorts of different rooms so that you could be accepted. I'd like to think that's a universal thing, but it's not. There's certain people who have really developed their ability to shapeshift. And if you bring that into your business, if you bring that into your spiritual business, people are going to be like, who is this person that I'm in the room with now that I signed up for your class or your course? And now you're letting your hair down. But something that has saved me a lot of pain is figuring out how to let my hair down right off the bat, so that on a consultation call, I always try to insert a joke, some humor, some self-deprecation, some like just these are the ingredients. I may not oversalt, like I'm not necessarily going to be the exact same version of if we were just homies and hanging out at a party. Like, yeah, you're going to get a slightly different version of me, but
right. Like
I
this
don't
is
want
the
you to
role
get-
that I'm in right now that serves a certain purpose in our
Yes.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. You want it to be a bridge from who you are in your other relationships, not like a character that you're playing.
Oh, yeah, totally. Oh, you mean like when you do finally show up face to face with somebody that you're working with?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just this feeling of, I mean, I will say with me, with running a spiritual business, one thing that I learned is that who I was allowing, how I was showing up in my sessions with clients who were going through, deep, challenging issues in their lives, and I'm holding space for them, wasn't how I was showing up in my friendships. Meaning there was almost this fragment of personalities. Like I didn't feel safe bringing my spiritual side into my friendships because at the time I was the only like one with a spiritual practice in my friend group. And then my friend version of Rami wasn't always showing up in my sessions because it felt like inappropriate to be that relaxed. And
so we're back to this fragmented idea.
Right.
There's like different fragments.
There was definitely a cracking point. Like that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. And
then there's no reason to continue doing, the work that you do if you don't feel like it's also providing some freedom for you and beyond financial or beyond, not having a boss breathing down your neck, which are all these great benefits. Okay, I'm free to create my own business, but can this path of showing up online be a path of personal development? Like I a lot of the time hate posting on social media, or I'll face my own challenges and then I'll feel this giant relief, like it's my art studio, like this is my form of creation, this is art.
Oh.
The points where I hit that resistance that I face, I always have to come back to like, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this to free me. I see an area of myself where I'm maybe still working through something and don't feel allowed as a spiritual teacher to share this perspective. As a spiritual teacher, I don't feel allowed to show this part of myself. Okay, well, that's the exact thing that I need to fucking share with the world.
Wait, so you're saying that in your journey, you've noticed like the pieces of myself that I feel I'm not allowed to share become areas that you realize are the exact thing that you need to share.
Yeah.
And have you done that? Like that's something that you've actually explored and worked with?
Yeah, I even have a name for it called Down the Clown, which is
what?
like it's named after the carnival game.
Oh, I can picture that in my head now. Yeah.
So I view those as aspects of myself.
Oh.
So if I find an aspect of myself or a place where my voice is getting constrained, like especially with a spiritual business, like I've seen this with other people too. Like I was able to share online freely and just like not think too much about what I was posting. And then once I started like taking myself seriously, or once I started relying on this financially, like this is my job and I've quit all other sources of income, there's this seriousness that wants to seep in.
The stakes change.
What's that?
The stakes change.
The stakes change.
Yeah. And then the seriousness comes in. Sorry, I was just like clarifying that. Yeah.
Definitely. There are actual stakes. Like there weren't really stakes before.
Totally.
And I love steak.
Hot dogs and steak.
So that down the clown idea, just to, finish that thought, is finding those aspects and then like I will purposely create a reel or a carousel to allow that voice to be expressed through me.
Mm-hmm.
This can swing in another direction, which I come against this like philosophical debate in my head, which is is my business for me or is it for other people? Like, is my Instagram just a thing where I heal, and that's actually going to be where other people find benefit too? Because if I'm digging deep, I'm facing my shadows, my fears, my insecurities, sharing things that I don't want to. Usually that's what people resonate the most with. They see the real you. They connect with you on a soul level because you've let them in. But it can also swing so far in that direction of like, this is purely for my self-expression, when in reality, it's also linked to your business. It's also...
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing you say is you're wondering about how do I toe the line between authentically sharing my process of things that I'm going through in a way that's going to be sincerely helpful to people versus maybe sharing too much in a way. And the word that comes up in my mind is back to this food in a restaurant analogy, is like, is it cooked or is it raw? And I feel like internally for me, when I think about that, because I'm always negotiating that, I actually share a lot less than I used to as far as like my active process. I think my gauge, and this is something that I have to figure out on my own, is like, how cooked is this insight actually? Because I think a lot of people, I'm not saying you're doing this, but I've observed, I think a lot of people share some kind of like undercooked insights, but I don't even know if I can even fully explain that. It's more of a feeling. And maybe that has to do with just like tapping into like the authenticity of like the integration. Maybe this cooking thing has to do with like integration. What do you think about anything that I'm saying?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I love the food analogy, which, you know, my analogy is sharing the scar rather than sharing like, is the wound like infected and you need to treat it first before you share your battle scar with the world? Because on a deeply personal, like, this is just for me to get support from, like, now I'm asking my community to like show up for me. If I'm showing them my pus-filled wound, now they feel like, oh, I have to hold space for this person who's going through this thing. And if you're running a spiritual business, it's like kind of inappropriate for you to cross that line. I mean, you get that support where you need. I think healers and guides need healers and guides, right? Like, coaches need coaches. We need other people to support us.
Right. But how much do the people that you're actively working with need to know about your process in such a way that might create a dynamic between you where their helper is coming up and they're maybe not expressing so much in session because they're worried about you, because they know that you're going through something. And then that actually hinders the dynamic. Am I getting that? Like, that's kind of like the thing that you're observing, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can go the path of being like a traditional clinician.
And you don't say anything.
Who doesn't say anything about
For sure.
themselves. But
For sure.
We're towing this line. And I think we're building this new reality, this new kind of sector of whatever we are, whatever we're doing. You're your own flavor of it. I'm my own flavor of it. But we're learning it as we go too. Like, what are the boundaries? And each individual gets to choose. But I feel like that's a really good, the raw, you're serving uncooked food. This idea isn't fully thought out, but also that has its own shadow side, which I experienced because I kind of didn't share for so long things that I was going through, or, you know, that I'm imperfect. And then you feel this out of balance, like, I'm constantly showing up for others, but I'm not actually letting people see the real me. And so then for me, it's been important to like inject more of my truth, more of who I am in my personal life into my online, you know, persona or whatever, and creating this bridge. It's a delicate dance, but it's also teaching me so much about myself in the process. And I have the healthiest relationship with my business that I've ever had. And a big part of it, and a big part of me loving it, is saying to those aspects of myself, like, you're welcome along this journey with me. I'm not going to abandon you to be this hyper professional, super clean, polished thing. And it's also not what people want anyways.
Yeah, I think something that I'm picking up on is we're kind of talking about towing the line between showing up in a way that's responsible as far as like how things could affect the dynamic between us and a person that we're working with. So almost like on an ethical level, like I think it's very real. Like if somebody knows too much about like an intense thing that you're going through, if they have expression issues, if they have people pleasing issues, that could show up in session in a way that's detrimental to them. You could speak to that. And that's a coachable moment, actually, if there's enough rapport with the person. But I think the thing that we're talking about is towing the line between being responsible for the way that we impact people online and how that could show up in the outcome of our personal work with people. But then also towing the line between realizing that, like, the phrase that keeps coming in my head is like, maybe pushing against this idea that like the spiritual guide on the internet needs to have everything figured out. And maybe there's like this feeling like I can't authentically share the thing that's really going on with me because I have this perception that, or the culture that I'm in has the perception that the spiritual guide needs to have everything figured out. And if you're sharing that you're going through a hard time, that means that you don't have it all figured out. And then you're no longer an authority that's worth anyone listening to. I don't know. This is just like random stuff that's coming into my head. Does any of that stack together?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean about we're creating this thing. I think I mean, I'm very passionate about breaking the mold of what it means to be a spiritual guide. Like that is very exciting for me. Like it's in my DNA to want to destroy systems that are no longer serving people. And to kind of be the embodiment of a little bit of a sacred clown or trickster myself. And just to be honest, I've always been a trickster. I've been developing that skill my entire life. I was always a class clown. To completely remove that from my personality would be very inauthentic. So what do I see within the spiritual community? And it's this like hundreds, thousands years old. I don't know how ancient it is, but we're coming in with this idea that spiritual guides need to have it all together or need to perform this thing. And it shows up in different houses of worship all over the planet, right? So I think it's this archetype that I have some contention with, that I think we want to expand the boundaries of what's possible. It doesn't mean that it doesn't serve a purpose, because if you're inviting someone into a place where they want to feel held, access deeper parts of themselves, you have to hold the container. It's not just fluid and I'm going to share with you everything. It very much goes into that place of being inappropriate, and it compromises the safety or sanctity of that relationship. However, that skin has been so tight culturally, and that archetype has denied all these aspects of it. And then there's all this controversy that comes out around religious leaders and the things that they've been hiding, the things that they've been doing secretly, because it's like, well, yeah, no one's perfect. And you can't actually pretend to live that way. Like everyone has their shadows and their desires. And
right. Like a spiritual guide is supposed to be, just using the narrative, the common narrative is like more than human. And then if there's like any human left, that means that they're a failure or they haven't done something right. Whereas like, even like when I think about therapy, which is interesting, I think there's a Venn diagram of like spiritual stuff and then like therapeutic approaches. And then there's like a middle area that might be the growth edge that we're speaking to. But it's like, even with a therapist, it's like a therapist doesn't need to be fully healed to help people. And I think we all know that.
Yeah.
But so then why is it like we hold this other thing to this ridiculous standard? And maybe it just has to do with like the mythos around it. There's not like this huge mythical thing going on of deep cultural perceptions around like the role of a therapist. I mean, maybe there are, and I'm not seeing it so clearly. But like, as far as like what is a spiritual being, most people have like this like non-ordinary, beyond humanness thing inside of them, whether they know it or not, or if they haven't done a lot of investigation into that. That's kind of more how people see these things. And so then if the human peaks out at all with the guide who is leading people in whatever capacity, of course there's like space for people to like own their part and take accountability for themselves if they're behaving in ways that are impacting people negatively. But I don't really get the sense that there's even like a precedent yet for like how can we hold the imperfection of human vessels that are transmitting wisdom for people with like, you know, the fact that we're here to grow as human beings in this realm. I don't know. I'm saying so much shit that's like piling into like an idea. Is any of that making sense?
It's all this is. I didn't know we were going here, but this is exactly where we need to go.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. I think the thing that I'm really trying to point to is that I think that right now, we're recording this in 2025, the birth of a spiritual leader that embraces and takes responsibility for their humanity we're like on the cutting edge of that. And I'm not saying you and I are, but like collectively, there's a cutting edge of what that thing is that I think historically there's not a lot of precedence for. And there's also a lot of pain in spiritual communities. I mean, even speaking as an Eastern practitioner with all of the yogis that came over in their 60s, 70s, and 80s in the United States and all of the controversies that came from that, there's so much unresolved pain from that people are still holding, which might be part of the reason why people hold people to such a high standard, because that shit has actually never been fully resolved. What we think the resolving is holding people to an extremely high standard. Whereas there's a whole other version of resolving where like spiritual leaders do the human thing where they fuck up and then name it, address the impact, and actually do better. There's not been a whole lot of that. See what I'm saying?
Definitely. Yeah.
And grow and do better. There's not been a whole lot of that. So this is what I'm saying. There's like the cutting edge of like something happening right now.
Absolutely. And I come from this, shamanic background. And the thing that I love about like working with some of the shamans that I've worked with is they take their work very seriously and they don't take themselves very seriously at all. It's like this self-importance is removed, but they take their work seriously. But they can dance between the realms of reverence and lightness and play. And when it is a real, container, it's serious. But it's this weaving and this sacred dance, I think, that we're all learning how to engage in. I also, as you were sharing that, like there's this desire to tear these people down. And I'm seeing it, there's spiritual figures right now. And it's like there's this collective thirst to find some dirt on these people, to break them down and to see, because if you really feel like someone's not showing you the whole thing, you know it on a deeper level and you want it exposed. But it's also a projection of like, why do we want our spiritual figures? Why have we created them to be perfect? And it's because we believe that that's the only way that you can connect with source. That's the only way that you can be on a spiritual path, is if you've fucking figured everything out. So it's a lot more convenient for us to place them in these boxes. And it's like, if you start showing up more authentically in a spiritual space, you may lose some connections or followers or whatever. But some of that is projection of like, oh, I liked it when you were just doing guided meditations. Like now that you're like talking about this, or like you're like bringing humor into it, or like after you said fuck, like I can't even like, and does that make sense? Do you know what I'm saying?
What I'm hearing you say is that people put spiritual figures and what's possible spiritually into certain boxes that they might not even realize is distancing themselves from what's possible for them in some ways, because it's like if the only possibility for like heightened spiritual awareness is like being a perfect angel who never fucks up and hurts anyone ever again in any way, your underlying belief is that like, oh, that's not even possible for me anyway. So you've distanced yourself from what's possible for you spiritually, which is maybe I always like to use the word complex. Like the thing that we're going for is a more complex embodiment.
Right.
Where we're deeply honoring of our individuality and our role here in this lifetime, but we're also aware of the aspects of ourselves that transcend our individuality simultaneously. And maybe just like with the evolution of consciousness, we're moving more towards that full integration of heaven and earth, transcendental and immanent, but we're not ready to let go of our old narratives that were purely transcendental. Of like, the perfect spiritual being is unaffected by everything. They're blissful. They're always working selflessly. They have no ego. Like all these sorts of things that are things that are real, but are reflections of spiritual processes, especially speaking like from monastic, even like Christian monastic traditions, Eastern monastic traditions, where it's like the whole thing is just like transcending the body. And that's a valid approach. But I think that for some reason we cling to that as being the thing that we're striving towards individually, even if that's not something that we want. I think the average person wants the integration, but then when they finally meet somebody who is integrated, they're like, oh, this isn't. I don't like that you said fuck. Kind of like what you were just saying. Like I was into it more when you were just like the transcendental meditation guide, and now I'm hearing you make jokes, and I'm like, it's messing with my perception of what I think the spiritual path is. And so it's like they finally meet the integrated guide and they don't even like it. Yeah. I think that was my very long-winded way of responding to what you said.
Exactly. There's dirt under the fingernails. There's ugliness associated with it. There's impurity, which I hear woven throughout that. I mean, there have been times where people have called me gifted, and I always try to get rid of that thought as quickly as possible. Like, I'm not gifted. I sit down every day and I meditate. I do full moon fire ceremonies. I have a practice that I engage in. I am just like you, but I'm consistent with, my spiritual practice. That's the only difference that maybe someone at the beginning of their journey sees with me. Like, I don't like this idea of being particularly gifted. Of course, we all have different gifts. We do. Like, you were talking about collaborating with your co-teacher on your conflict course and them being great at building PowerPoints. And that's like not something that you're down with. Yes, okay, we have gifts. But I think when we project all these ideas onto spiritual teachers, it's like they have access to something that I don't have access to.
There's an analogy that I've used sometimes with magic where I think that like people have turned, I'm just talking about like Western magic, let's say, just to be very specific. So like people have turned magic into like a clubhouse of like Harry Potter wizards versus muggles or something. Whereas like, in my opinion, the capacity to do magic is actually everybody's birthright, because it's just using subtle tools to enact change in physical reality in the same way that you could take a shovel and dig a hole in your backyard. You could just like use a subtle shovel and dig a hole in your soul or something. It's not like this club of like people who have the gift or not.
Yes.
I think the thing that we maybe focus too much on is like anyone can learn how to play piano, but there's some people that are clearly like maestros. And they just have, for whatever reason, like a gift for like being extremely talented at all of the nuances of playing the piano, but anyone can learn how to play the piano. And in the same way, it's like anyone can learn how to do magic. anyone can learn how to do the things that people see in you that they consider to be gifted. But I think the big issue is that spiritually, there's a lot of narratives, especially in normative religion, of like, you could never be Christ. That's idolatry. Or what's the word? I'm not Christian, but it's like, or you could, there was only one Muhammad or something. I'm just like giving these examples. And so it's like in the big normative religion. And then I think that conditioning goes very deep, even if you're not even raised religious, to such an extent that it's like these beings came down to earth, did something, and then they left, but you can never be them. All you can do is be obedient to them. All you can do is like live in such a way that maybe they'll like you in the afterlife. I'm like kind of painting broad strokes, but I think that conditioning goes so deeply that like maybe people show up in relationship with you or any spiritual guide and they think like, oh, this person has things that I don't. Maybe if I'm in proximity to them, I'll be blessed. And that's the best I can ever hope for.
Yes.
And it's like, bro, like even my guru is like, I haven't done anything that you guys can't do. But that's like transformative. Like most people are like, what? Like they don't even like think about that. And I look at all of the saints that in my lineage and I'm like, they don't have anything that I don't have. It's just about how much do I want to say yes to what's needed for my consciousness to mirror what was possible for them. They're a role model for me. See, there's one way of looking at it. People don't always think of like, oh, our guides can be role models for what's possible for me. There's like this barrier. Oh my God, I'm yapping. But
that's great. I feel that, I'm big on shadow work. So I love to look at the golden shadow, which is the idea that we project our power, our light, our unembodied, spiritual connection upon these leaders.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so we admire them, but the very fact that you are admiring them means that you carry that very same thing within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look back on the people that I've admired as I go 10, 20 years in the back in my history. And I've kind of become the people that I admired 20 years ago at some stage. Like I kind of like embodied that whatever gifts that I saw them carry within themselves, whether it was like childlike wonder and play or like creativity or self-expression or like, and now I still have role models. Like there always are people that I feel like are ahead of me in certain areas, except I'm very mindful not to create an entire idea of what their whole life is like, because I've met these people, I've gotten close to them. I've seen that they're awesome in this one area, and then their personal relationships are a mess. They're awesome in this one area, and their finances are a mess. There's always some shit that they're like going through. There's always something that's kind of like undeveloped or where they're still reaching and where they're still growing and looking up to someone that hopefully they can embody some of those traits.
Like their registration is expired on their car.
Yes.
I don't know anyone
dishes
who
are
does
overflowing. They live in filth.
Oh my God. Right. But you're saying that like there's certain people in your life that you admire and feel inspired by, but you try to check yourself on like maybe pedestalizing them by remembering like, oh, we all have our work. We all have things that we're working on and growing with.
Yeah, and breaking it down also to the aspects of the person that I'm most drawn to. Like, what is it about me that tantalizes, like, why am I following this person and feeling like this? They're giving me the keys.
Oh, totally.
And so then I break it down into character traits of like, I guess I love their authenticity. I want to share more. Or I love how articulate they are. I'd like to write more. Or I love their musicianship. I need to play guitar more.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of what we were talking about earlier about like the entry fee to sharing online is dealing with people's shadow projections. And then I'm hearing you share like, I'm trying to be clear on what are the specific things that I admire about this person so that I can kind of like stay awake to that. But then kind of going back to the conversation of like personal growth with the spiritual path as well. one of the things that's been really helpful for me is checking myself on who it is that I'm fixated on in a way where I'm judging them, and to use that as information for me about what it is that like I could do with some growth about. And I think the first conversation we had, I was talking about how my username used to be Orgasmic Abundance.
Yes.
And then I realized, like, and I was making fun of a very specific person, but then I realized that I was actually jealous of her. And I catch myself doing stuff like that all the time now, but I've done enough work that like I almost kind of, it's more of like a live and let live sort of feeling that I'm with now, where I'm like, oh, like I want to feel free to express myself authentically as long as I'm being responsible. And so I'm going to like give other people that grace a little bit more. But there have definitely been figures where it's like I am judging the way that they show up online, but there's like something about the way that they're showing up that's something that I wish I could do, but I don't feel like I'm allowed to. And so anyway, that was a long-winded way of saying that. Like, have you experienced that?
There's always a figure that pisses me off, that I can learn more about myself through that trigger and through that frustration and anger. And I mean, some of the, my favorite things that I've written or created have started with the seed of frustration. I was listening to a Paul Simon interview yesterday, and he was talking about that all of his songs start angry and bitter. Like, you'd be surprised. Paul Simon, You Can Call Me Al, like Scarborough Fair, whatever. That a lot of his songs start angry. And then as he continues to play, as he continues to write.
You mean like when he's developing the song?
Yes, like the very seed, like the beginning of the songwriting process starts with some heavy emotion, starts with some anger, specifically, he was talking about. And I can relate to that too. And then, like for me, as I write, I've gotten that thing out because I didn't want to filter myself as I was writing it, but now I can look back at it and I can kind of cook the meal, like we were to throw back to the beginning of, like, okay, now I have raw pasta on the plate. I'm not going to serve that, but I can cook that. I can find the alchemy within that. And for Paul was talking about, like, I don't think the world needs like more of that, and needs another song about anger, and doesn't necessarily need that in the collective consciousness. But so that's kind of our role too. Like, what role do we carry? What do we want to see more of in the world? Like, that is part of what we're sharing, what we're creating. Like, I want people to feel okay being a paradox, being a bunch of, aspects that don't necessarily create this perfect, bundle that is marketable and flawless. And how do you, walk a spiritual path and embrace the mess of the whole journey? That anger that shows up online or seeing other people, yes, you could say we're victims to it, but we're not really, because we're perpetrating the same thing with our thoughts. And even if we're not commenting on other people's posts and trolling them, we're still carrying those thoughts. We're still carrying that vibration and projecting that out into the world. So it's full of information. Like my anger is full of information that it's trying to teach me. It's a part of me that really wants to be seen. And yes, I may be outraged, and it may be something that I deeply care about. But when it really boils over, then there's always something deeper that I can learn about myself. Like,
you mean boils over individually that nobody else is seeing, or boils over in the way that you're sharing publicly?
I mean, just privately in my own.
Oh, just privately.
Got it. Every time I see someone's post, it's like annoying me, right? Like, boils over to the point of like, this isn't just like a little annoying. Like, I'm actually, there's something there for me. And I would say something I notice a lot is we go through these different chapters, almost like incarnations within this life. And sometimes the way people are showing up in the world, or online especially, it may look a lot like the version of you that used to exist, the person you used to be. There are ways in which I see people show up, and I would say one of my judgments is like, you're naive. Like there's a lack of self-awareness. There's a naivete. And I can think back on, the beginnings of my spiritual journey and how naive I was or how ungrounded I was. So sometimes when I see that out in the world, it's an opportunity for me to love that part of myself on a deeper level, or someone showing up vulnerably in a way that feels ugly. And then it's usually there's a reminder for me there of like, well, you're not giving yourself permission to show up in your relationships that way, or in your life. Like you don't feel safe being held. And there's someone else who really does feel safe being held, or there's someone who really feels safe, asking for help. And so then you see someone asking for help online, you're like, oh.
Whoa.
Like, you're not allowed to do that. And it's like, well, maybe I'm not allowed to do that. Maybe I've been telling myself
I'm not allowed to do that. Not you're not allowed to do that. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So you're saying it's like you go online and you've cultivated a disposition in yourself that you are consistently working with, where it's like, if you see something, I'm judging this person as being naive. An antidote to that feeling is just like taking a moment to remember, like, oh, I've done that too on some level.
Yeah. And can I embrace the ick of that? Like, and love that previous version of myself. I also think if you've been showing up online for a while and you scroll back into your posts from a year ago or a few years ago or a few weeks ago,
100%.
You cringe. And so part of that cringe when we see it in another person is like, it's the very same type of cringe that we have when we look at an old post of ourselves. You can see
Totally. There's no shortage of being able to look back and remember that I have been and currently am cringe.
Yes.
When I cringe at others. Yes.
Which is scary, knowing that the shit you're sharing right now, in a year, you're going to look back on. And oh man, that's a hard.
Yeah, but I'm also like committed to the iterative process of like continuing to refine my expression. And if I'm not like putting myself in a position where I have to continuously refine my expression, it will never be refined.
And that ties back in with the theme of like, this path that you're on, running a spiritual business, is the self-work path, is like the transformational journey. It's not separate from it. It's creating this feedback and this almost like auditing of yourself. Not filtering, but also witnessing, like how many people just consume, how many people are just going to consume this podcast and not create something.
They might live in the floorboards under their mind for several years, and then they realize, I need to do it. Or not.
Yeah, I mean, I find when I don't share on social or whatever, particularly if I don't share on Instagram for a while and I'm just consuming.
Oh yes.
It doesn't.
We have to output as much as we're inputting.
Yeah.
There's got to be a balance for sure.
Yeah, it consumes you if you're not contributing to this thing.
Real.
That consumption becomes consuming. It eats you. It will eat you. And it is a real antidote. Share like one thing in your story, and that will start to like break up the heavy energy surrounding that little boogeyman in your mind. Like, because you're not meant to live in nature that way. You're not meant to just take from the land and not give anything back. And in a sense, in the digital space, you're also not meant to just take from the digital space and not give anything back.
Yeah, or at least like take some time to notice like if that's actually negatively impacting you or not. I would say probably for the majority of people it is, and maybe some people just aren't. But like even like on this note of like sharing and expressing, it's like something I was thinking about earlier is that I kind of there's no other way for me to say this. I kind of feel like I have like a pathological need to share. And that's been like one of the things that's like kept me going is that it's like it's interesting what we were saying, like, are we doing this for us or are we doing this for other people? And I think it's both, because on some level, it's like, even if I hypothetically decided that I was done with my business, this is actually the third business that I've had. So, it's not off the table, but it's like, I would still be posting though. So it's like, I have this like pathological need to like share my point of view and express. And I actually experience it as like a subtle art form.
Yeah.
It's definitely. Like there's something like to it, like maybe even I find it kind of like compelling to think about like the way I could set something up that I'm posting that would not for like manipulation's sake, but like just like kind of something that I think about a lot is like the entire landscape of like being on social media. And like what I like to think about, like somebody's holding their phone and looking at my Instagram and then like actually like getting into their head and thinking about like what their experience is going to be like, or like what could I do that like might surprise them? What could I do that might like kind of shake them out of like the numbing doom scroll? Not to necessarily get them to listen to me and take me on as like an authority, but just like to wake them up to like, hey, it's like, hi. Like I'm compelled by like posting in a way that like wakes people up out of the numbing aspect of being on the platform. And I think there's something about that that's like decidedly tantric, because it's like historically early tantrics would do ritual in like graveyards and like all of these like disgusting places. And it's like, I kind of view Instagram as like a disgusting, almost like graveyard or like a landfill or something. I mean, there's so many things about it. There's all of the, it's like fucking Mark Zuckerberg, all of like the money. He's like funding wars, there's like all of this horrible shit. Like there's every reason to not use Instagram. But it's like, if there's going to be a landfill where I could like show up and like inject a different message and potentially change the trajectory of someone's life, maybe they're not going to listen to me, but maybe they read a spiritual book. I actually think that's worth doing.
Wow. I kind of have to take that in. I mean, I'm going to take that with me after this call. Yeah, it is dark. And I know there's, a lot of content out there that says, social media is neutral and it's just like everybody can share whatever they want. It's not purely bad. The internet's not bad. It's like, yeah, it's not. It's allowed us to, follow our hearts and create business doing something that we love.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that we couldn't have done it without it. However, there is this deep addictive quality to it. And there's a very small fraction of people that are contributing, that are showing up like, hey, break out of your little, addiction bubble and you're doom scrolling, and I'm going to like help guide you back to your heart. While there is a lot of content out there, it's a very few people who are consistently doing that. So it does feel like it's kind of eating us collectively if we don't inject spirit into it. I mean, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, how would like an animist or like somebody operating from your worldview, or even like a tantric, like, I'm not gonna like look at a piece of land that has like toxic things on it, or lots of crap or something that I judge as like bad. I'm not gonna like I'm not gonna separate that from my vision of everything being spirit and God.
Yeah, definitely. And
so
I'm gonna go
like,
to the place on the planet that needs the most healing.
100%, dude. That's a good way of putting it.
I'm gonna perform a ceremony or a ritual in that space.
Right.
And the landfill is so much bigger than anything I could possibly approach on a material level. Like I don't have the resources to hire the backhoe and the, excavation machines that are going to take care of it, but I can perform a ceremony. I can open a portal. I can turn my disgust into gratitude. I can find that ick within myself that I see when I see someone being too vulnerable online or something that disgusts me. And I can learn to love that aspect of myself that I'm disgusted by. I can learn to embody the part of myself that I'm mesmerized by in another person, the person that I'm putting up on a pedestal. I can learn to take that into my body, that version of myself. I thought about when you were sharing, like, it's a compulsion and you can't stop. That ties in with animism very clearly for me, because people who are called to the shamanic path, like, you see this throughout the entire world. People who are called to this path generally have some challenging experience. Some of them experience something that we would look at like psychosis, or they have a strange chronic illness that, like, no one can help. And a lot of these things usually show up in adolescence or in the teenage years. And generally, they're coached, guided by an elder. So maybe it's a grandparent or a great-grandparent that takes them under their wing and works with them for months and years to embrace this gift. And it's not that they were forced into this work just because they're the descendant of someone, and just like a shoemaker, they need to make shoes like their father before them. But more so, like, the community around them is noticing the signs. Okay, what are the signs showing up in this person's life? Oh, okay, they have this calling. Where that ties in with what you were sharing is that if they don't share their gift with the world, with the community, they go mad. The negative side effect is that you fucking lose your mind. You spiral into chronic illness. You're basically you have access to this energy that's meant to flow through you. I would argue this is for everybody in some different version of it. And if we think about an artist, why is there this tortured artist archetype that shows up over and over again? Why are there so many extremely talented people that fall into addiction, that fall into the seediest parts and these very challenging aspects of life, and they suffer for years and years, and they don't have any money, and part of that is when we don't embrace our gifts, it consumes us. It takes from us, because the thing that we have, whether it's our voice or our heart or ability to, shake a rattle and open sacred space, it's the thing that always brings me back to this path. I think if I didn't have that kind of relationship with my spiritual path, whereas I've tried to get rid of it. I've tried not to help other people. I've tried not to have the practice. I've tried to, like, go other routes over these last 20 years. Like, it's been the thing that always pulls me back. Someone will pull me out of early retirement for a session, and then within that session, I'll transform into my true self again. And after the session, I'll feel like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, I do love
to get
doing
out
this.
of my own way. And sometimes that's also with sharing a post. Sometimes that's that same, like, small thing of, like, oh, I just needed to write something and share my heart with the world. But a lot of the time for me, it's like I needed to hold space for someone else. And you're talking about waking people up out of this landfill experience. It's like you contributing your heart, your soul, this river of light that you're connected to. Because that river of light, when it's not channeled through you, it turns into this stagnant pond. When water stops flowing, the negative, bacteria starts to grow, the harmful flesh-eating bacteria that if you get it in your mouth, it'll freaking eat your brain. Or all the mosquitoes start to lay their larvae in it, or there's algae blooms that kill all the fish. What happens when water stops running? And in the same way, creatively and spiritually, what happens when we stop channeling?
Whoa. Whoa. Something that's coming up for me is I'm thinking about, like, okay, so like I have this pathological need to share. Okay. And then I also have this like pathological need to experience nuance. And then part of like the pathological thing that I tend to share is like big picture perspectives. Like I was born to be a big picture thinker. And anytime I kind of feel like somebody's trying to force me into black and white thinking or to not be, or to be like a tunnel vision thinker, it's like trying to get me to wear like a Victorian corset or something. And I'm like, why on earth would you want me to do that?
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about it, it's like I have this pathological need to show up and share my big picture perspective that is often quite nuanced. It's like, well, what's the territory that we're operating in with the landfill? It's like a black and white outrage space. It seems to kind of be like the things that get preferential treatment in the algorithm. Divisive content, myopic views of like things that are happening. And so I think that like for whatever reason, I'm kind of like driven to like not necessarily say things to force people to change their mind, but just to kind of disrupt black and white thinking is like a thing that I feel very compelled to do. And then it's not like counter to my work as a spiritual guide because I don't think black and white thinking is productive spiritually either. But that maybe is just my opinion. And so anyway, I was just like thinking about like you were talking about like this need to share the gift. And then I was like kind of like, what is the gift? And I consistently get recognition from people around like my ability to like zoom out. And I think for me, it's been a journey in the last several years to dig my heels in more and more with that and be like, this is just the way that I view reality. I don't think my way of viewing reality is any better than anyone. I just happen to be really good at looking at things in this way. And if you're into the way that I see things, that's awesome. I don't know. Like, that's just where I'm kind of at. Yeah.
Incredibly powerful medicine, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I always call it nuance, like nuanced thinking. It's also part of my passion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so easy. You see these realms of groupthink, and you think you're a part of them until it transforms into something else, and you're like, oh, wait, like I'm actually an individual. I forgot I was an individual. Like it wants to take you into a very clear and clean cut route, and the decision's already made for you. It's like, and it's very much similar to a kind of religious path. Not to talk smack on anybody who has a serious religious practice and they believe wholeheartedly in one single book, but extremism is really loud, and being somewhere in the middle and holding both possibilities is very upsetting to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that kind of ties in with us as individuals of like, I am all these different parts. Like, not just do I think different things can be true simultaneously, but I also have different truths within myself that don't always agree with each other. Like I hold both those things. And I part of my healing journey is like bringing those things more into playing in the same key. Like, can these be different instruments? Yes, but can they play jazz together? Like, can there be some coherence there? Can it be a conversation? It's powerful medicine that needs to be injected. And, part of the calling is to notice the absence. Like, what's the absence that you see?
That's it. That's it. I feel like I don't think people just following me might not realize how tuned in I actually am, because I just kind of post whatever I want to post about, but I'm like always monitoring world events actually very closely, but I don't like post. I have my own reasons for that. However, because I'm so tuned in, the thing that I notice what's not being said.
Mm.
Or I notice like what people are overlooking. And I will start posting things as antidotes to the thing that I'm noticing not being said. And so even today, I was very intentional with something that I posted where I was talking about my analogy of like a man going to a strip club and then bringing that energy back to his wife, which is like a stereotype. But then like the analogy is like, well, we have to go out in the world, into nature, just walking down the street, see something really inspiring, and then bring that back into our spiritual practice as like something that gives us energy for devotion and offering. And the caption that I wrote, I was very specific. I'm actually very intentional. I was like, this doesn't need to be a big thing. Like, you could just be sitting in awe and wonder at the beauty of golden hour shining through grass in a vacant lot, and then bring that energy back to your practice. You're not hurting anyone by being grateful for a tiny beauty. But like that last sentence, I'm speaking to the thing that I'm noticing is not being said. Because there is so much suffering and there is so much pain that we're very acutely aware of right now. But something that I observe is that people think because all of that's happening, I'm not allowed to feel joy because other people are suffering. And so I try to inject antidotes to that feeling so that not to erase the things that are happening, but to kind of bring people back into center. It's too extreme.
Oh, totally. And as it goes back, ties into the restaurant theme perfectly. Like if you're on a strip and everybody's serving Thai food and then you decide to open a Thai restaurant, like, no, like find the absence and the things that upset you and the things that inspire you and what's not being said. Because I guarantee there are tons of people out there who see an absence, who see some opening in their community or in their relationships or in the online sphere of what's not being said.
Dude, that's so good.
And there is no niche. It's not about you calling yourself something. Like you are the motherfucking niche. You are the niche. Like as an individual, the way that you see the world is the niche.
The way that you see the world is the niche. Is that the name of the episode?
Yeah, sure.
Man, find the absence is so good. It's actually reminding me of the elephant in the room thing that we were talking about earlier, where it's like if you have a perfect veneer, people see the elephant anyway. And I kind of wonder if there's like a similar thing to like, like people are seeing the absence, but they feel the absence, but they're not seeing a lot of recognition or naming of it or something. I don't know. I'm just like, I sit with like the subtle energy dynamics of online discourse quite a bit.
Oh, definitely. You're stepping into a realm where there's all sorts of like landmines. And so you can walk that wisely and try to navigate those things and try to make everybody happy at the same time, but then you're not saying anything. It's like,
that's right.
It's a very personal decision of how you want to share your voice. But it's challenging ourselves to share what isn't being shared, because we don't know everything, but we do know our personal experience. We do know the lens that we see the world through. It doesn't require any more schooling or mastery to communicate how you perceive reality.
I'm just like sitting with where we're at here in this conversation. Was there anything else with like unexpected pieces of growth? Because I think something that we're in that category, we're kind of talking about like the iterative process of learning what is the most authentic and productive way for us to express ourselves on the internet. So like we've been there. But is there anything else? Like, is there, the money is rattling around in my mind? Marketing, even like, because we're talking about like sharing online is one thing, but like marketing something is actually something that's different to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And so it's like, I can like me sharing my big picture thing can become marketing. I've done that actually, but it's not necessarily marketing. You know what I mean? And so do you have any desire to go in that direction of like covering maybe these other topics?
Yeah. The thing that's coming up for me is when you are paying your bills from a spiritual business, you've quit all other sources of income. You're going all in on this thing. And maybe it was done in a very, calculated way, like where you started making enough money through this thing and you were able to quit your other stuff. The way that I typically work is like, I know I won't make the leap unless I light a fire under my ass and there's some level of urgency. So I generally take leaps that have worked very well for me. But there are points running a spiritual business where you're going to start going through changes in your personal life and on your own spiritual journey. So you're not going to be the same person that you were when you started this journey. I haven't had a boss for over 10 years, and I've changed over the course of those 10 years. And at those points of like almost reincarnation, where I want to change where my business is going, or I want to offer something new that I've never offered before, but it's going to take some development. The fear of the financial aspect of things will come up to tell me like, no, you got something good going. Like, don't mess with it. Like there's uncertainty that then shows up again. So it's even after you develop a business that's supporting you, it has to be this living, breathing thing. Otherwise, it becomes inauthentic. Because if you're evolving, but your business isn't catching up with who you've become, then you start, falling into the possibility of kind of phoning it in and becoming a almost caricature of yourself, of who you used to be when you started your business.
It needs to grow with you.
It needs to grow and evolve with you. And for me, those junctions, maybe there's been 2 or 3 of them have been scary. And I almost viewed this fear of survival that shows up at those junctions of like, the stakes are higher. I have a wife and a child that
you do
also
something that is making you money, but then you realize it's to your detriment. And then it's like not worth it for you anymore. I'm just like saying a random example. And then maybe you have to stop doing that thing.
Right. Do you mean like this thing that once set you free is now becoming a cage? Is that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You were interrupting. You were about to say being like a father and husband, but like I was going to give the example of like, for me, I used to have a membership site before two membership sites before Patreon. And I would give an hour-long talk every week. And it was so much work. And I did make maybe like a quarter of my monthly income came from it. So it wasn't like insignificant. But then I got to a point where I realized like this actually is more work than is worth it. I'm like getting sick from doing it. So I had to say no to it. And that was a risk because there was money tied to it. And so anyway, but I was saying like I needed to go through that process to realize what my limits were. And so I needed to let what I was doing grow with me. Whereas like an old version of me that would just push through, I just got to keep doing it. That was becoming increasingly inauthentic for me to like do more work than is feeling good for me. But anyway, that was just
it's unacceptable with the spiritual business to follow that route too far.
Oh.
You start abandoning your body at a certain point.
That's
or you
right.
abandon your mental health. You leave something behind that is going to, your loved ones are going to feel it. The way that you show up in your life, like it's going to be affected. And you could look at like, a CEO or someone who's running some other type of business that we could argue is not spiritual. But maybe that's silly because everything is. But there is this, there's a lot of toxic relationships that people have with work where they can suppress certain aspects of themselves and they can like fall into addictive behaviors and take whatever drugs they need to get through the day. And because they're supporting their family, it's worth it. And because they have a vacation home, it's worth it. And because like all their needs are being met, it's worth it. But if you're running an authentic spiritual business, it's going to grow and evolve with you. And there are going to be things that you have to let go of. And ultimately for me, like my deeper, connection is always with God. And the reason that I continue on this path is for something greater than myself. And it would be the opposite of everything I'm preaching if I start ignoring my body, if I start ignoring my mental health, if I stop taking care of myself so that I can take care of others. Because again, it's about us being a mirror for other people. So we do have to be living these things. And my relationship with my business has to be in balance. So there have been junctures where I'm almost becoming a different kind of person, or I want to share, these tools in different ways. And it's been scary to take those leaps. I see it as like a wolf, that is a metaphor for survival, especially like financial. And it tells you like, no, it's not like I will eat you alive if you change this right now. Like I will eat you alive in the sense of you won't be able to pay your bills.
But which creates an existential survival feeling in the body.
Right.
Yes.
And it has made me delay changing some things within my business.
Because the wolf is like breathing down your neck.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I'm exhausted, but this is my job. This is not my hobby. And people have to do hard things. And then I let that wolf eat me, and it allowed me to
it pooped you out in a new form.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I said, bring it on. This is bigger than my fear. You can eat me alive, but this thing is going to grow and evolve and change with me. And again, it's like always tied to the financial thing over time. Like it has taken me into better places within my business on all levels to embrace those changes, to again, remember surrender. Because I guess this is all for me about surrender. This conversation about surrendering to where the business is taking you, where it wants to grow and evolve and change, and trusting again in that river of life. Like instead of clinging to those branches of these are the 4 ways that I make money inside my business, and if I break off 3 of those right now, I'm only hanging on by a twig as I develop this other tree down the river, We're going strong with the metaphors today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just the way it be with me. But do you have you don't have to if you don't feel comfortable answering this, but do you have anything particular that you've done in regards to sharing tools in different ways, like these certain junctures? I gave the example of the membership site. If you don't feel comfortable, it's fine. I was just wondering.
No, I'm comfortable. I'll tell you anything about myself.
I feel great.
I'm an open book. The big thing for me is that I was basically running a one-on-one practice for quite some time. And then kind of opened up to retreats. But the big jump for me was creating a school, an online school, actually training people for 5 months and doing an intensive training, which also meant me creating tons of video modules and workbooks. Just this
material
mountain of material, and also mountain of intimacy and connection, because it's you're enrolling with, I would take people through it one-on-one as well, and we would be in this container sometimes for 18 months going through an apprenticeship, holding space. So that pushed me up against my edge of I really liked being this kind of, I'll be with you for 3 sessions, and then I can kind of retreat and collect my energy, and I don't have to be in contract with people for super long. But that also was kind of tied to my own intimacy stuff that I needed to expand on.
Wait, so I'm hearing you say that you went from a majority one-on-one practice where you had these long-term commitments with people that took a certain amount of energy because there's only so many hours in the week, right?
Yes.
To then iterating into not abandoning the other thing, but adding another thing where you're able to show up at a different time commitment with people.
Yes. I would say pouring a ton more of my energy and getting more of my income from the one-to-many teaching rather than the one-to-one. Because I was running a one-on-one practice for so long. I was getting messages from spirit and just through life consistently that like, hey, people want you to teach them. People are coming to you. Yes, for one-on-one, but these are really people that want to like fully develop something for themselves. They want to walk this path. That's part of the reason they're drawn to shamanism to begin with, is because they want to hold space for other people. So people, I feel that, you know, spirit speaks through other people for me. Like I'll get messages through other people. They'll show up and I don't take those things lightly. But there was resistance on my end. There was fear of like, this is a giant thing. Am I worthy of that? Am I a good enough teacher? Can I collect my thoughts enough to create something this intensive? Do I want to be in this space with other people for 6 months or a year? So it forced me to confront all that because I was getting so burned out from one-on-one sessions. It was just, I was exchanging only my time for money. I wasn't making, you know, income any other way. So very much set up like a therapist or a massage therapist or whatever. And so there was always a cap over like how much I could support my family. My wife got pregnant, that was kind of the initiation of like, hey, this isn't about you anymore. So she stopped working, and then we had a daughter, and having our daughter gave me a source of unconditional love that was looking at me every single day as I created my school. Because as I was facing all this self-doubt or, you know, building this thing that was pushing me to my edge every single day and digging deep, I could come back into the room and see my baby and be like, all right, it's all worth it. It would. And again, it was that fire that was lit under me that motivated me to keep moving and ultimately to make me better in my relationship, to make me better as a father. Like it's one thing for me to have like a lower self-worth and continue to pour myself into these one-on-one sessions over and over again. But when that starts affecting people around me, now it's not just me. Now it's this thing that needs to grow. And taking that leap has radically transformed my relationship with my business. Because before that, at the tail end of that, I started to think that I didn't like what I was doing. It started to distort my relationship and made me think that I didn't even want to walk this path. When the truth was, it wanted to evolve.
I get that. Something that I think I'm hearing you say is that you realized that maybe you had some limiting beliefs around how you can qualify work. And maybe it felt like at first, like it was safest for you to receive money for one-on-one work because that felt like a clear agreement for people. This is like fair, you know, it's like I give you an hour of my time, you give me money. Whereas like maybe the school felt like a different tier of receiving money because it's not like you have to expand your sense of like working for money specifically. Or wait, how am I supposed to say this? It's like expanding beyond wage thinking with how we generate revenue in a business. And I think a lot of people, when they start, they usually come from hourly work or salary work. But very often, I think it's the hourly conditioning where we think money equals amount of hours spent working. Whereas when you get more into online sales or running a business that may be service-based but has other things going on, the thing that we start getting paid for is outcomes, not necessarily like the specific hours that are spent working on something.
Yes.
And so I think what I'm hearing you say is that you went through a process where like the wolf was eating you, where you realized like, oh, like I can get paid for like the outcome of certain types of work that aren't necessarily attached to like my hourly output working with people directly.
Yes, there's a caveat there, which is I still think I'm getting paid hourly, but a bunch of my work is done just with me in my studio.
Oh, got it. Oh, got it. So it's
it's not like a customer service. It's like the leap from like customer service to building a work of art and selling it, and also being
totally. But like integrating all of that studio time into maybe the price
exactly
of what it is that you're selling. I think, yeah, that's actually a really big thing. I think a lot of people underestimate or undervalue the amount of work it takes to get to the point where something can be sold. They think it's only worth like that 1 hour that I'm with the person versus like 20 years of experience or 5 months of prep to put together an offer or something. Like they don't think that that time matters because it's not like face-to-face time with a person. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was, in a sense, me like going back to my inner artist. It really felt like I reclaimed my inner artist, because there was a split when I thought I was following the path of being a musician and that I was going to make my career that way. But I had my shamanic training already in my back pocket. I was just like, not yet, which you can see a little bit, part of my shadow, a little bit of something that shows up on my journey. And when I dove deep into holding space for other people, I put down my guitar. I was like, oh, what could go wrong? Well, like that part of me needs to be fed. That's a very important aspect to my spirit. And so when I started creating this school and more of this type of offerings, whatever we want to call it, courses or pre-recorded or something bigger than just my one-on-one time can offer. When I started pouring my heart and soul into that process, which also turned into like a kind of filmmaking, because I started getting obsessive over the editing process and the music selection and the sound design and all these other, parts of my personality came online. It became more of a weaving of this artist and spiritual path kind of coming together. Like, I'm going to craft this thing like an artist would and then put it out, and simultaneously I'm going to walk you through it and support you as a spiritual guide.
Wait, so am I hearing you say that like when you metaphorically like picked up the guitar again, literally and figuratively, like that was you recognizing that the whole process of living matters as far as like the quality of like the work that you want to put out? It's not like these two parts are separate, like the whole process matters.
Yeah, like almost putting the guitar down for a while, it helped you really take this one thing very seriously and develop this super strong foundation. And now the wall that you keep hitting within your business, you're going to need to bring your inner artist along for this next chapter. You're never going to get further. You're going to totally bail.
Oh, totally.
Because it's not fun anymore. Once it stops being fun, and it's also not going to grow because of all the very tangible your artist is needed to create the next stage.
Oh, that's why I bought my whiteboard. I actually have it behind me.
Sweet.
That's literally why I bought my light board. Oh my God. That's why I bought my light board. Okay, anyway. That's why I bought my whiteboard, because when I was doing the marketing for the conflict course, it was actually I hadn't done a big marketing campaign in like a year, and that's like a really long time. And I was like thinking a lot about it going into it, and I was like, I need marketing to be fun. Otherwise, I'm not going to want to do it. And the thing about marketing is that it's one of those uncomfortable things that just needs to happen if you want a certain outcome. And so it's like what we were saying at the very beginning of like, If you have all this stuff that you could help people with, but you never talk about it, nobody's going to find you. So to me, a lot of marketing is just about being found. So it's like a twofold thing. It's like, how can I get people to find me? And then how can I share a story that shows them that I have a solution for them with a problem that they have, not necessarily in a way where I'm manipulating their pain points, but just kind of pointing out things that they might be missing so that I can expand their mind to like a potential solution that I can help them with XYZ thing. And so the thing with marketing is that when I think about marketing, to me, it's just like a certain thing that needs to be done. And it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. If you want to have a spiritual business or literally any business, but you do zero marketing, and marketing can be a lot of things, you're delusional. Like you're not going to, like, you can't manifest like money to come in without like some sort of way for people to understand what the thing is that you're doing. There's just literally no getting around it. And so for me, I realized like, okay, I've been doing this for a while in certain ways, but I've started to notice that it feels like really trudgy. What's the word I'm looking for? Marketing was starting to feel really like heavy, arduous. It was feeling arduous. It was feeling inauthentic. And maybe it's because the old version of me that used to market in a certain way, I'm not that person anymore. And then like after a year of not marketing very much at all, aside from like some certain things, but like not like a big course, like I realized like I'm different now. I can't market the way that I used to. Not that there was anything wrong with it. I'm just not that person anymore. And so what do I need now to feel inspired to do the thing? I need my whiteboard. And then I made all these whiteboard videos and I loved it. I loved the entire process and I got the result that I was looking for. And I also like
gold nuggets.
I'm very data driven and I look back on things and I have goals. I set goals for myself. And because then I feel like when I have a goal for like a certain amount of registration, a certain amount of revenue, it helps me understand the amount of work that needs to get done. If I don't have the goal, I don't know how to structure the marketing. Because then you're just kind of like throwing spaghetti out. And so I actually think it's very important to actually have a specific goal. And I had my specific goal and I sat with it for a few months. And then I realized, okay, if I need to do a certain amount of things to be able to get that goal, how can I make it fun? Whiteboard. And then after I did all of my unpacking after the course was over with like numbers and crunching, how did it all go? I was $200 short of my goal.
Yes.
So it all worked.
It worked because you reclaimed the whiteboard.
Because I reclaimed their whiteboard. But it's not that like, anyone who's listening is like, oh, I need to get a whiteboard. You need to do the thing that feels authentic for you. And for me, I love the feeling of like having a marker and then like drawing stuff. I just like the way it feels. I think it's funny. I think it's helpful visually. I think the whiteboard is actually disruptive in the algorithm. There's a lot of talking head videos. I post talking head videos all the time, but like all of a sudden you're scrolling and you see somebody with a whiteboard, it like turns on the like second grader and you're like, oh, I'm going to sit back and learn something. It
Definitely.
Like does something different.
Did I just jump to YouTube? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, am I still on Instagram? And so anyway, there's things there, but that was a solution that I came up with because I'm committed to the creative process of being found on the internet.
Bravo. That's a win. I'm going to think about what my own whiteboard is.
Yeah, what's your whiteboard?
I mean, singing, you could sing a song trying to market something, but that feels that makes me uncomfortable. But
well, what were we just saying about things making us uncomfortable?
Oh man. Well,
the only way to find out
week, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen this week because I'm pushing myself on this final week to get this offering out there. So
the only way to find out if something works is to post it and then look at everything that happens as data. It's the only way to find out.
Okay. That's good. I'm glad this session came with homework.
There's that one guy right now who's been posting a lot of anti-war folk songs.
Yeah.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's the antidote for something that the culture has been missing.
100%. And so, I don't know if he's specifically marketing something, but I think there's something about that that's speaking to people.
That's right. Yeah,
why is he getting so much
So then
traction?
I'll just copy what he does.
You should copy what he does.
And I can find myself in the
Damn
process,
it.
right?
Damn it. Well, I mean, I'm not the first person with a whiteboard.
That's true. I'm not the first person with a guitar.
Whoa.
It's the combination of all these pieces. It's again, being in the kitchen. What's the ingredient that would make this dish really interesting? And exciting. Like, I love what you said about this was the way that I could transform this from being an arduous, painful journey into being fun for me. Like, how do I make this fun? If the marketing's not fun, why would anybody even like linger over your video for that long? Or like, you can definitely feel when someone's not having fun.
No, I think we're actually like, this is kind of my esoteric thought, but I think that like collectively we're becoming more and more sensitive to the energy behind what somebody is doing when they post online.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. And the energy behind when you write something with ChatGPT and then just recite it like it's coming off the cuff, it's pretty
so
real. There's a lot of people who don't see it yet, but you will. And
I think we'll all see it.
People might scroll back into their own accounts and delete some of those.
I use long dashes a lot, and I always have. And I've heard that now people are associating long dashes with ChatGPT, so I really need to hold my ground.
Long dashes. Long dashes. It's not a blank, it's a blank.
Oh, that's totally it.
That's yeah.
It's totally it.
This isn't a downfall, it's a revolution.
Stop.
It's not a course, it's an initiation. It's not, whatever. You can find some of that in my copy too, but I try not to use it.
Oh
it's What's the energy behind it? If you're writing a book and you hate the process the entire time, well, people might not enjoy reading it.
People are going to smell it.
Yeah.
People are going to smell it.
If you're trying to extract something from another person and that's your only reason for doing something, people are going to feel it. Like, you got to tap into the joy, into the heart with whatever you're putting out there. Even if, part of the reason is you want people to sign up for your course, you got to tune into the part of you that really believes in what you're offering, that pushes all the other noise out of the way of being a phony, of being cringe, of manipulation, of all those things, and get back to the heart. I have molded this thing. I have this beautiful clay pot, and it would be so sad if I didn't show you its contours.
Yeah, what's another thing? This is just food for thought, but even just for anyone who's listening, sometimes it can be really wakeful to just say the thing. And so, like, to actually just say, I'm marketing to you. Like, to say stuff like that. And I remember when I first started posting for the conflict course, the first thing I posted was a video about marketing 101. And I explained what marketing is. And then at the end, I said, for the next month, I'm going to be marketing to you about my conflict course. Hopefully this was helpful. Like, I was just like trying to like be transparent. And I think that I'm not saying that you need to do that or anyone needs to do that, but I think that, speaking of the absence, it's like, so many of us have been feel like we've been experiencing the negative side effects of subtle marketing, or like getting marketed to and then like having our mind be like disturbed by like whatever that is, or like kind of shady marketing techniques. The shadiest marketing techniques is you getting marketed to and you don't even realize you're being marketed to. That's like the shadiest marketing technique there is. But then it's like, if you just like say the thing, it's like, yo, I'm about to spend the next month like telling you why I think my course is a great opportunity for a specific type of person. I feel like energetically it like opened up all of these doors instead of me like pretending that I'm not doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Yeah. And you're saying it to yourself too. It's like you're creating the space. You're letting people know that they're in a yoga studio. instead of pretending it's a pizza shop. Like,
totally.
if so, like all of a sudden,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. An
You're letting
edgy,
people
an edgy
know.
thing that I was doing too, this probably doesn't sound edgy to a person, but for me it was edgy, was like when I had a marketing video this last cycle, there would be text on the video the entire time talking about how the course was starting. So that almost gives somebody like energetic consent that like this is a video about the thing that I'm talking about. I might be offering value to somebody who will never sign up for the course, but they kind of know this video is related to this thing. Because something that I've observed is a lot of people get kind of salty where they're like, I watched this whole video and then at the very end they try to convert me to their thing.
Oh, damn.
Do you know what I mean?
Deep. You're touching upon something that I have definitely done.
I've done it too.
Yes.
And so it was edgy for me to like put that forward.
I'm going to create something of value, and I'm going to give it to you for free at the end of this thing, whether it's a carousel post or a reel or a newsletter. You're going to realize it was all tied into my cell.
My cell.
It doesn't invalidate the beginning part of it. Is still valuable on its own. Just take it. But if you're watching the whole thing, then this might be for you. You definitely see it a lot on the internet right now. You see it with products, which is like, that always feels icky with like, oh, it's like, we just found out there's heavy metals in all these salts. And like, it's like Paul Saladino with all these different salts. Oh, everything has heavy metals in it. And then it's like, okay, now you're fucking selling me salt at the end of the video. Like, I was actually engaged because I don't want to eat poison. And then
totally.
At the end of it, you're telling
it's a pretty
me
compelling argument.
You're literally telling me the solution that I can ingest into my body. It's like, I get it. That's classic marketing.
It works. There's a reason why it happens.
Yes, it works. But I love the permission slip. Not just for the other people, but I would say for myself as like the part of me that feels like this is cringy, to put just that label on it, like I'm selling you right now on this. I'm going to go all in. It's very much, it also kind of ties into shamanic practice, and it shows up in my apprenticeship course, which is, I even play the clip from Eminem from 8 Mile, because I feel like Eminem does a great job of this medicine, which I call the practice of invisibility, which the practice of invisibility is full transparency. So when he's in a rap battle, he's been attacked the whole movie. He sticks out like a sore thumb. He's in a space that he shouldn't be in. Everybody's, trying to knock him down. And then in the last rap battle, he basically shits on himself. He basically dismantles the other person's argument completely, because he says, like, I know I'm white trash and I live with my mom. Like, and so it's deeply exposing. So it's saying like, hey, I'm about to sell you. So you can't, like, you're volunteering to be in this space. It's a little different than what we're talking about, but it's this radical, like, transparency, which people are starving for. I mean, we're being manipulated all the time. So
Totally. Yeah. And it's like when I say, or I do something that indicates that this is a space where I'm doing some sort of marketing, or I set the stage, like open the doors for like, this is the majority of the thing that I'm going to be doing for the next month. It's like, I think that people just like appreciate me saying something that's like, frankly, kind of like taboo. It's like taboo to say like, I'm actively marketing this thing, or everybody's like trying to like hide it away. And so anyway, I think that's my final thought about that.
That's great.
Yeah. Yes.
Instead of pretending it's not there, it's exposing the elephant in the room.
Right. Yeah, I kind of love that. Is there anything else we want to say? Because we've been here for 2 hours. Actually, it's been longer than that. Recording for 2 hours. How are you feeling? Do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good. Maybe we could fit, because we want to talk about all this unexpected growth. And then maybe like, do you have like a final thought on like maybe for somebody who's listening who maybe wants to do something similar to what we do, like, do you have any like sage wisdom? Maybe somebody who's just thinking about it, like, what would you say to them? What would you say to them?
Pick your pain. Like, what pain are you willing to tolerate? Are you willing to tolerate the pain of staying in a job that you have right now? And maybe you don't like your boss. Maybe you like your job. But it comes with, every job comes with pain.
Mm.
So do you want to face the pain that comes along with running a spiritual business, which is just a different kind of pain? It can help you evolve, but your job right now might be able to help you evolve in the same way. I would say for me, the thing that keeps me consistent is like, this is the pain that I'm choosing. I'm choosing the pain of showing up online. I'm choosing the pain of self-promotion. I'm choosing the pain of facing these parts of myself consistently within my work and developing them and healing through the process. But working at a corporate gig comes with its own pain. And I would say people I see making that leap, it's like where the pain of working their current job seems greater than the things that they would have to face building their own path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really good.
That's not what I thought was going to come out.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's kind of similar to something that I would say. I would say if somebody was thinking about doing something similar to what we do, which may involve quitting their job and jumping into the deep end, the thing that I would say to somebody is make sure the reason why you're choosing to do this can withstand the intensity of like losing your tether to stability, and like really check in with like, what's your why? Is the why, like for me, my why is speaking of further pathological things that I have like a pathological need to not have a boss. That it goes so fucking deep, and I've felt this way since I was a child. So this is like a lifelong, like I need to be my own boss sort of a thing that I'm like stubborn about. And that stubbornness has led me to withstand periods of financial instability that most people would like cringe at. But like, if you realize like, oh, I really want to quit my job and do a spiritual business because I really just want to work at home. It's like, well, you can get a fucking work at home job.
Yeah.
Like, just make sure you know why. Is it just because you want to work at home? That's not a good enough reason. Because you could get a stable work at home job, actually. It's more and more possible. And so make sure it's like you're clear on what's really going on. And is it strong enough to withstand the intensity of being the sole proprietor of your existence?
Absolutely. Anytime I second guess myself on this path, I think about having a boss, and then I immediately rededicate myself to my business.
Yeah, it's really not that hard for me to stay the course. I have the exact same
you
thing.
Want a boss now? Okay, keep working.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would sooner go back to just pulling weeds for people, which would still be me working for myself. Right? Because I had a landscaping business for 6 years. I would just go back to doing that.
I did 1 day of landscaping recently, and that made me rededicate myself to my spiritual work.
I honestly think my body probably couldn't handle it anymore, but
I was so sore after that. So sore. But, it's a good workout, I guess.
It's a good workout. It's nice to be connected to the earth.
Yes, definitely.
For a few hours.
Your fingers dirty.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Had such a great time.
Me too.
I love this one.
I want you to shamelessly plug your school because registration is ending soon, right?
Yeah. Registration ends July 8th.
July.
Really like July 7th.
Okay.
Our first class is on July 8th. I would let you sign up in the morning of July 8th, but
okay.
I do require you to set up a free consultation with me because it's a serious undertaking. We're stepping into 5 months together. It's about 50% personal transformation journey as we walk through the medicine wheel together. And the other 50% is training in ancestral energy medicine. I trained with teachers from the high Andes of Peru and here in the States as well. And basically giving you everything that I've built my practice off of. Very strong form, lineage connected ancestral energy medicine. If you choose to create an entire, career for yourself doing this work, it's the foundation for that. But many of the people who have signed up just want to imbue their own spiritual practice and hold space for their friends and family members in this way. So it'll give you tools to become spiritually strapped. And if you've had a calling to to hold space for others, and you feel, this healer's calling, I would say, you can learn more. RamiDreams.com, RamiDreams.com/apprenticeship. Find me on Instagram at RamiDreams. I have a unique name, so you could just Google that and probably click the thanks. Yeah.
I can't stop with the spiritually strapped. That's funny.
You want to walk through the Bardos, I could help you.
You get spiritually strapped. There's something about that. I'm like, you should say that more often.
It came out recently. Yeah.
Totally.
I'll use it. There are a few little good one-liners that
encapsulate the essence of the outcome you're looking for. It's good. It's good shit. Good shit.
And I would also say, if you're able to stand listening to me for this long, then you probably vibe. But
you're going to love it.
You're going to love it. If you get this every week for 5 months and videos of me in your ear all the time.
Amazing. Cool.
Thank you, Hanna.
You're welcome. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. You can contact Rami and learn more about him on his Instagram or his website, Rami Dreams. Check out his website with all of the information about his shamanic school. Registration for that ends morning of July 8th. Okay, so there's a little bit less than a week here to sign up for that if you feel inspired. And then other than that, if you're loving Grace Pilled and you loved this episode or have loved any episode of Grace Pilled, do me a favor and do some free marketing for me and share this episode with a friend. It is literally the freest way to communicate to me and to the universe that you love this show and you want me to keep going. It's the best way for me to grow my listener base and to potentially turn this into something that's a legitimate part of my monthly income, which is my dream. And then other than that, you can check out my website, hannawilliams.com. That's HANNA Williams.com. And I have a whole smorgasbord of things there. I have my online shop where you can buy stickers and cool merch. I have my Patreon. I have my sessions page if you want to book a call with me. And like I said, if you want to do business mentorship with me, I'm specifically interested in doing more of that. And so I'm totally here for you. Email me with specific questions before you book. That's totally fine. I understand that it's an investment towards your business. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And then what am I missing? Nothing. I'm not missing anything. It's all perfect. So that's it for now. And we'll see you guys in another conversation next week.